Yeah, I was under full attack. I've always been under full attack. I don't know of much time in my life where I wasn't attacked since learning that Joseph Smith is a translator. Travis Wayne Goodsell. I'm a bit bummed today because of after learning of the news of the Supreme Court letting people go free from being held accountable in the justice system, and then learning that the Democrat senator does not get to go free as he's been indicted. And then again today I got further confirmation that the problem that I brought up today's Wednesday, I think at the end of last week, can't remember now, could have been Monday. No, it would have had to have been earlier in last week, I think. But regardless of when it was, again, no follow-up from him to further attack and silence me, which confirms that my complaints to the court and my counterclaim are getting resolved, except for the big one, the final resolution of my counterclaim. And it's really annoyed me that there's an unequal justice system, because if our government leaders were to be treated like regular citizens, we'd have a purging of the government. And if the church were treated like a regular citizen, church would cease to exist long ago. In the Book of Mormon, notice I always teach from the Book of Mormon, Mormons. Never, ever, ever do I preach my own doctrine. It's always from the Book of Mormon. I use Mormon scriptures against you because the Mormon scriptures are your judge, and you have failed. There it is. It was the chapter or the book heading. And so, yeah, I would welcome any Mormon to debate me. But again, you'd have to preach against the Book of Mormon to beat me. And thus no Mormon can do it. And scrolling down to where I want to get to. There it is. Verse 12. And so Mormons are left being abusive, which again violates the Book of Mormon teachings. Mormons cannot be obedient to their own religion. They are abominable. With the abominable Christ in the abominable church. So Alma, chapter 1, verse 12. A man by the name of Nehor had slain Gideon because he didn't like that Gideon was using the Book of Mormon. And so Nehor used the sword to show that his church was true. And in verse 12, Alma is the chief judge among the people, and so he's brought before Nehor to be judged. And Alma says, "Behold, this is the first time that priestcraft has been introduced among this people. And behold, thou art not only guilty of priestcraft, but hast endeavored to enforce it by the sword." And were priestcraft to be enforced among this people, it would prove their entire destruction. So what does Joseph Smith say in history? That in the last days, Mormons do not hearken to the Mormon man like Moses. They will be utterly destroyed. Must be warning you about priestcraft in the great and abominable church to come out of Babylon, the horror of Revelation. Sure enough. And so, in February 1997, I didn't realize at the time that I should have kept track of the date, the day, but I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew. I had obtained the key to deciphering Paleo-Hebrew. And if you're familiar with Jean Champollion, who deciphered the Rosetta Stone, which is the Egyptian in the learning of the Greeks. Language of the Egyptians, learning of the Greeks. Sounds somewhat familiar? Maybe if I replaced Greek with Hebrew, it wouldn't sound Greek to you? Again, Book of Mormon. And he was able to do it by finding the word Ramses on the text. And he was able to identify with Coptic. And so for his decipherment, it was a phonetic decipherment of Egyptian. And again, language of the Egyptians, learning of the Greeks. Because the Greeks had an alphabet. The Egyptians don't have an alphabet. So what the Greeks did was try to turn the Egyptian script into a speakable language. And that's demonstrated on the Rosetta Stone. And yet from that, Egyptologists, thanks to the key from the word Ramses, which Ra was the key, and he recognized it from Coptic, the characters that spell out Ra in Coptic, and thus the phonemes are similar to Coptic, merged with Greek. And Egyptologists are now able to translate the text in Egyptian petroglyphs. They do not translate the picture scenes, as I demonstrated for you yesterday, and nobody cared. And so, likewise, I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, because I was trying to find out how Joseph Smith retranslated the Hebrew text of the Bible from the King Follett Discourse. Grew up Mormon, born in the covenant, was faithful and true, are the moments we too can share, and did the research. You know, the whole concept of the spiritual witness never made sense to me, and so if any Mormon was trying to present it, it easily went over my head as, no, that's not right. And I would take notes all through my childhood on all different kinds of scrap paper that I had available to me, and compiled them into what became known originally as philosophy of Mormonism, and then eventually Mormon illiteracy, which sparked a firestorm. There are a lot of unhappy people who didn't like it that they're illiterate. But yeah, most people don't want to admit that they've got a problem. They lash out with violence. And so, after my decipherment, using Ramses from the Bible, with the Paleo-Hebrew spelling, I recognized the connection, the pattern, with the Egyptian characters. Universal symbol of the sun and the Egyptian flag symbol for gods, or God in the plural, in the singular. Multiple flags mean gods. And I was overjoyed. I do my happy dance whenever I make a discovery or a decipherment, and crank up the music as loud as I can, assuming nobody's nearby. And sometimes would have to wear the headphones. But yeah, I told my wife. This was Stephanie. If any of you saw that number 2 or part 2 video that I did not too long ago. And little did I know, she was in the works of abandoning the marriage and fleeing the country. And it was after that she started leaving divorce books on the bed, had brought us in to talk to the bishop about why I'm not filthy rich with a job that's giving her a white picket fence, her own vehicle, and credit cards. I just graduated from the University of Lethbridge. I knew that I had to start from the bottom and work my way up to the top. And the first day I went looking for a job here in Utah, because her plot was to take us to Utah and then abandon me here with my parents, because we were staying in their basement, which was unfinished. They told me it was finished, it was all ready for us, and instead I realized that they wanted me to build it. But nonetheless, and so, make a long story short, she turned the bishop against me, turned my parents against me, and tried to frame me for being violent when it was her that was violent. Again, Mormons are learning the wrong lessons from the Book of Mormon. As the bishop even cursed me when I got kicked to the curb by my dad. And they all helped her. The church, both our parents, helped her flee the country, and she took my research with her, along with the computer. And this was floppy disk days. And so, I had to redo the research. And finished. And on January 2nd, 1998, I remember the date, I went to the church office building. And, or I mailed it. No, I went to the church office building. They don't really say in my troublemaker file, because either I went to the church headquarters because I didn't know the address, because we didn't have Google search to type in what the address is at Temple Square for the administration building. And this was obviously before 9/11, when they then created a letter screening, postal screening place that was safe if in case a anthrax letter got sent to the church. And but I had gone to the administration building on a number of occasions, but according to their records, January 2nd, 1998, they put my my preliminary decipherment of the script in a troublemaker file. And they didn't tell me about it. But having communicated with the F. Michael Watson, not T. Michael Coyne, F. Michael Watson, who was the secretary to President Gordon B. Hinckley, he told me that he had authorization to respond, and that he had talked to Hebrew scholars at BYU, and that they had told him about the traditional translation. Can you imagine my annoyance? I already knew the translation. I'd already graduated, having learned it, and thus knew how to pursue a decipherment. And so yeah, I then went and submitted my further findings, knowing that they didn't care. They were just going to put it in a file cabinet, I thought. Lo and behold, it was a troublemaker file. But I get a phone call from the secretary of my stake president in the younger singles ward that I was in at the time, because my family ward stake president kicked me out. Didn't want me in his ward or stake, especially since the bishop cursed me and wanted nothing to do with me either. But I go in thinking I'm going to get a stake calling. I had no idea what it was for. And I see the full stake presidency and the full bishopric all crammed into the tiny little office that he was using, because singles wards get treated like crap. And so I squeezed in, as I'm a big tall guy, and they immediately begin by saying, "Who did you tell about this?" What? What are you talking about? What is your plans to destroy the church? Who have you told? I'm just like lost. I have no idea what they're talking about. I'm being interrogated. They were seeking to excommunicate me. And they were told that President Hinckley wanted me excommunicated. And I told them that President Hinckley didn't even see my documents. I was going through F. Michael Watson. And so they were shocked. You know, the bishop then tried to throw a Hail Mary by saying, "I saw you in sacrament meeting, and this is a younger singles ward. We go all the way back into the overflow to the back of the stage." That he saw me out of the whole crowd not partake of the sacrament, and therefore I must have been guilty of sin. They were desperate. And the stake president cut him off. Knew that was ridiculous. It was the same bishop who got up in a fast and testimony meeting and rambled on for many minutes to make sure others wouldn't bear their testimony, as he's listing off all the names of masturbation techniques. Oh my God. I mean, it was educational, but I had no way of writing all of it down. We didn't have Google search to then go home and Google what they were, or use a cell phone, which I wouldn't have done anyway. Cell phone's obsolete. For phone calls only. But nonetheless, America is trying to program us to be like China. And if you don't know how China is using their cell phones on their people, you really need to find out quick. And so the stake president says, "I'm going to get to the bottom of this. I'm going to go downtown and speak with President Hinckley directly, and I'll find out what's going on." Never heard back from him. One day I bumped into the second counselor. He then said, "Oh, yeah, you can continue your research, but don't go against the church." I thought I was supporting Joseph Smith as a translator. So I found Farms, and they're dumber than mule, but bleep bleep. I first spoke with John Devetness, and he told me over the phone that Joseph Smith was wrong. His translations are incorrect. And he then had a BYU symposium about contemporary documents supporting the Book of Abraham and Joseph Smith's translation. And so at the end of the first lecture, I raised my hand and said, it's Joseph Smith's King Follett Discourse sermon would also seem to support the Book of Abraham translation. And the whole audience started to mutter, and he panicked, realizing who I am, now seeing me in person rather than on the phone, hearing me on the phone, and did his, oh, you're probably referring to the King Follett Discourse. The King Follett Discourse was a sermon that Joseph Smith gave in April 6th, 1844. And he just starts rambling off and not answering the question. So I raise my hand again. So was Joseph Smith wrong? I never said that. Well, you did, but you did again. And so, yeah, the whole audience was just in a buzz, and that was it. We're done. Come back tomorrow for the next lecture by John Gee. Now, and yeah, I was sitting next to a girl. She didn't sit next to me the next night. She came with a boyfriend or a date. And then another guy at the end, he tried to lean into the aisle. Well, Joseph Smith was using, and I just looked at him and said, I know what I was asking. He says, dear God, everybody underestimates me. And so, yeah, they wanted nothing more to do with me. I got a letter from John Gee that was written in multiple versions of Egyptian. We've got a fight, so I'm thinking I'm going to have to stop this. So, that was fun. So John Gee sent me a letter that had multiple translation techniques of Egyptian, multiple types of Egyptian, using Egyptian characters, but they're supposed to be translated in different ways depending on which sentence he was using. And in so doing, I realized that he was trying to show how smart he was by showing how dumb he is. And yeah, he was saying, oh, poor Travis, don't feel so bad that you're rejected, blah blah blah. So yeah, I could translate it. Amazing. That's how I knew it was in multiple forms. There was transliteration as well as different ages of translation. Just stupid. Thinking he's showing off to me to show how far superior he was. But yeah, then John Peterson, is that his name? Daniel Peterson also sent me a letter saying, you are banished from Farms forever. And so I kept searching, because I still was led to believe that President Hinckley was not responsible, that it was Mormons who were taking it upon themselves to usurp Hinckley's authority to come and attack me. And so never at any moment during those days did I ever perceive that the prophets were responsible. I still maintain trust in the church. Well, we're getting to that. But further evidence that convinced me that the prophets weren't responsible was when I had made contact with the priesthood curriculum department, as it was called back then. It's now just the priesthood department. They make the manuals, and we're in charge of the ensign magazines and other stuff like that. So that the scripture footnoting also were them. And so I thought, oh, okay, well, maybe I can have, here we go. Yay. And so I spoke with the supervisor in charge of the priesthood curriculum department, and he said that he doesn't offer any kind of position, he doesn't offer any kind of missionary opportunities. He gets orders from the president of the church that gets passed on down to him as to what project they're going to work on. And so any submissions I would give would be put in a file cabinet, and I would have to say goodbye and never see it again. The church pretty much aren't going to do anything with it. But I was working, I got transferred over to Beehive Clothing in the warehouse, and one day he comes into the warehouse, which was kind of weird. I wasn't sure if it was kosher, but they all work for the church. Yeah, no problem. They all have their, and it took me a little while it didn't take me long to figure it out that it was okay. And he said that they were working on the Old Testament footnotes for the revision for the foreign languages, and gave me a form asking me to be involved with that. And I filled out the form, and I was divorced, and it was given to Hinckley, because back then you can't be a special church service missionary without Hinckley's approval. And as Hinckley had already approved of our ceiling cancellation, if you remember part 2 about Stephanie, he granted it immediately after my letter sharing my feelings, and so he approved it immediately. And the supervisor came back and was all excited. Yeah, you came highly recommended because of the divorce. And I got the Jesus card, as I've told you in other videos. And so I began doing the work. I would get papers, bring them home, and start working on the footnotes. I can go through the whole process, but that's not part of this. During that work, Farms had found out, because they were a part of it, as the Hebrew corrections were through them. And they learned that I was involved, and they tried to get me booted out. And the supervisor was stuck. I have the Jesus card. They can't touch me. Nobody can touch me. So I got an extended 2 years to finish the whole project. I was elevated to the top committee that reviewed everybody else's work. That's how good I was. And so Farms had no power over me to get rid of me. David Gaunt, frustrated and furious with me over some of the things that I was pointing out directly from Scripture, because that was our responsibility. We're only to put in the footnotes what we can reference in Scripture, or if a president of the church has talked about it, we can then justify putting something in about it. But otherwise, you gotta keep it out. And so I was rejected, and homosexuality is still the major reason why Sodom fell. Not neglecting the poor. And he was also furious because he had his daughter that was getting sealed in the temple. And he showed us the photographs, and the gorgeous, awesome photographs. I didn't feel it was appropriate to ask him for copies for my collection. But he was nonetheless furious with me when I pointed out that Joseph Smith changed the part in Genesis about the sons of God marrying the daughters of men. Joseph Smith had turned it into the daughters of the sons of God marrying the sons of men. And he didn't like that. And Sunday school didn't even like that when I presented it, and it was the older singles word at that time. They were upset with me. The teacher didn't want me speaking anymore, answering questions. But the Old Testament is my specialty. Not a single Mormon, let alone anybody in the world, knows more about the Old Testament than I do. I am the foremost scholar, whether you believe it or not, because I did the work. And deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, which led to other discoveries and decipherments. And so, yes, because nobody else did the decipherment, nobody else made the discoveries, nobody else is as knowledgeable as I am. It's just that simple. But it doesn't stop people from hating me and ignoring me. And so they realized they couldn't touch me in my calling. I had to be left alone. Even though David Gaunt had split our committee so that he can get what he wanted through and prevent me from preventing the incorrect information from getting out. As Nelson would then go on to screw things up at the Pulpit of Conference, as I keep going over with you. And I was still working for the church, and 9/11 occurred, and people knew that I had deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, and they had prior to attempted to make sure that everybody working for the church as a Mormon, because the print press was the only place at that time that had non-Mormons working for them, and so they were in the process of trying to weed them out and make it a full Mormon operation. And they were requiring that we had to show our temple recommends in order to continue to work there. Because if we didn't have a temple recommend, we were no longer allowed to work. They sort of changed that. And this came after the President Hinckley had made a change to the temple recommend interview questions. Because Stephanie had filed a complaint after I was giving from my paycheck over 50% to garnished wages for child support, she was still complaining that she didn't get it and that she wanted more, I guess, or they weren't giving it to her fast enough. I don't know what the problem was. All I know is that I was rendered homeless and was forced to go back to live with my parents in the basement. And so I can see what they were trying to do. Knowing that I may not be paying child support, they were hoping that I would be in trouble with the church and that they can fire me. It turned out they were wrong. And so after 9/11, in the worker review for raises, I was in meeting with Dick Ballard and one of the other women who was involved, and he came out and tried to claim that I wasn't doing top performance work to justify only giving me 5-cent raise rather than the 25-cent raise. And I called him on it right there to his face with the other woman present, because he knew what I had done. Not only did I fix Beehive Clothing, as we had 7 when I first was transferred over, 7 employees. We were having to work Saturdays overtime, full-time hours, 40 plus hours, and overtime on Saturdays to try to keep up and catch up with the workload. And everybody told me, this is the best we can come up with. Everybody's tried, nothing can be done. This is the best we can do. And well, I redesigned it. 2 people, 4 hours, done. Ta-da! And the church, that's exactly what they were looking for, because they wanted to turn the main center to the storage of the Beehive Clothing, and they couldn't because of the impediments at Beehive Clothing. So I was the answer to their prayers. Jesus card, remember? And so then I come over, I get transferred over, in that process into the returns department, and I'm assigned to also help with a manual on how to do the returns, and I had figured out how to utilize the computer and all that stuff, and so he knew all this, and yet he's saying that I was underperforming. And so I called him on it. I called BS. And he immediately was infuriated and went running out screaming, "I want him fired! Get him out here! I want him fired!" So I took vacation time, sick leave, whatever you want to call it, for a couple of weeks. And then when they had called, I just said, I quit. But that's exactly what they wanted. They got what they wanted. They got me out. Because the bishop also, that helped Stephanie leave and cursed me, he also wanted me to quit working for the church. Come work for him. Be under his control. As a church building worker, construction worker. He had lots of boys under him. It's very disturbing. But nonetheless, that's another story also. And then Art Shurtleff is next, because they were still, after I lost my job, I tried to donate plasma and was forced to go to University of Utah, so I wasn't making any money. so thus not paying child support. And so Mark Shurtleff decided, you know, hey, we'll screw Travis over because he's not paying child support, not caring that it's because I have good reason. Don't have a job. And so he convinced the Utah legislature to pass a law for deadbeat dads who don't pay to take away their driver's license. That ought to solve the problem. Take away their source of revenue, or source of resource for revenue, and that'll get them to pay, won't it? Dumbasses. But yeah, realizing what they were up to, that they were coming after me still, would not leave me alone. I then went to the church and the courthouse, the Matheson courthouse, and the Capitol building, where the governor, as well as the Mark Shurtleff, the Attorney General, have their offices, and filed a petition for a redress of grievances against the church with them. Didn't realize what the process was. We didn't have Google search, didn't have a download feature to get forms for me to fill out. Had no clue how to do any of that. And they instead decided to not allow me to redress my grievances. And instead they, on August 20th, 2008, a day which will live in infamy, arrested me as I came home from my contracted job working for the Postal Service in Draper. I was doing the work for my mom so that she can get a couple extra years on her Social Security when she retired. And I was arrested, and they purposely tortured me. I was going to suffer as a deadbeat dad translator because the church submitted as evidence of my criminality their troublemaker file with all of my Paleo Hebrew stuff. They had no intention of taking me to court. That wasn't what it was about. It wasn't about a crime that I had committed. They had charged me with 3 counts of terroristic threat, one of which was against the government of the church. My deadbeat lawyer, court-appointed lawyer, eventually was able to point out to the judge, Your Honor, we wanted to point out about the church being considered a government entity. Oh, okay. Will Mark Shurtleff be dropping this, or will he be changing it to another offense? I'll get back to you, Your Honor. It was lowered to a Class B misdemeanor, which was ruining their plans for me. They purposely wanted to murder me. They forced me on drugs. That's where that incident occurred, was they were trying to do it through the court. And they failed. And so they got the state hospital to force me on drugs. They said I was scary looking and therefore a threat to myself and others. And yeah, it was a witch hunt. It was a hanging. And I was forced on drugs. And the drugs I had later found out from a nurse are the kind of drugs that kill people. They were using drugs to experiment with me as to what would harm me. They were literally trying to murder me. And cover it all up because I had disappeared from society. 6 years of my life was gone as they tried to murder me and cover it all up. And I witnessed another murder that was there. I don't know if you know of the Mormon boy, returned missionary, who murdered his wife. Said that she was of the devil, and therefore felt like he was justified in murdering her. Well, he was there, along with Wanda Barzee. Brian Mitchell had gotten out and was going through the federal court system, magically cured of mental illness. Yeah, it was all for torture. Psychology is a fraud. And he one night was upset with his roommate for snoring and took his pillow and tried to snuff him out. and actually succeeded, because even though he had woken up, Omar was his name, he's from Somalia, he was able to wrestle him onto the floor to try to survive and breathe, but eventually the suffocation got him and he died. And I remember that night as one of the workers, the grave shift workers, I was at the door because my door had to be opened because my bed bunk mate was on a face mask thing. And so, yeah, he told me that Omar was dead. And he had sweaty palms, that Mormon boy, a tall Mormon boy. But, yeah. I mean, what do you tell his parents? I mean, dear God, he was there only because he didn't speak English. That's his mental illness. And the reason for drugging him and thinking that he was a violent man and a danger to himself and others. Utah is horrifying. I mean, they didn't learn the right lessons from Nazi Germany in World War II. They expanded upon it. They were even shocking people to wipe their memories. And I was even asked if I wanted to do it, as the psychiatrist, had a big old grin on her face. Oh, we can wipe your memory. You want to do it? Yeah, I had words that I'll have to turn off the video to repeat. They're just an evil field of study, which isn't really a study at all. It's just it's a field of bullying people and drugging them for torturing. That's all psychology is. But, yeah, I got out miraculously, just in time for the latter days, the pre-show in 2014-2015, for which Chad Daybell and Maury Vallow were dismissed by President Monson, and therefore decided to go off the deep end and murder. So yeah, they're in the news lately a lot now. And hold on. And so I was provided with a housing under probationary care because I'm a big, mad, mean terrorist. Translator. And I had obtained exactly enough money that somebody else in the apartment building was selling their computer system for $40. I had $40. They were selling for $40. Sign from God that he wants me to resume translation of the Jewish language. And again, be subjected to tortures and punishments and death threats and assassination attempts. Yep. And so again, at this point, I did not know the the prophet's involvement with any of this. And so, yeah, I get the internet and trying to redo all my research again. My dad saved some of it because a lot of the files were corrupted. And so my publishing on Amazon of my research and my devoweled Hebrew vocabulary has to have a code key at the beginning of it because of the font didn't match. And so, yeah, I resumed, then married Karen, and then people were learning that my study of Hebrew was going too far against the prophets. And so that marriage ended. My time in the church ended because the bishop extorted me to cancel all my research, take it all down from the internet? Or why am I bothering to come to church? Wow. So this is Joseph's founded church, isn't it? No? It's not? Oh, well, somebody should have told me when I was born into it.
Michael Scribus, you have a phone call at the main desk. Michael Scribus, phone call at the main desk.
And so, yeah, again, I'm being attacked. As they ganged up on Karen to have her abandon me, and our marriage got annulled, and she was taken away from me so that they could then target me directly. And they did. They tried to assassinate me through all different kinds of ways and methods, and they wouldn't stop. I had to keep going to the authorities saying, hey, these guys are attacking me. Tell them to stop. Have them leave me alone. We got other problems. So, yeah, even while doing this video, there are outside forces trying to hurt me and cause this video to be canceled. You see what I'm having to deal with here? But dear God. I mean, yeah, it was a nightmare. And so then I was becoming popular. YouTube joined in to silence me, and lots of problems. I lost my website because of the church having invested in the company that bought out my website. Then they shut me down. Yeah, I was under full attack. I've always been under full attack. I don't know of much time in my life where I wasn't attacked since learning that Joseph Smith is a translator. And everybody's wanting me to deny that Joseph Smith is a translator, and I can't. I used science. I can't. It's not a spiritual witness. It's not a belief. It's not an opinion. I can't. I know it's true, and many fruit has come from it. I can't, because to sit in church now, I'm just going, I'm so frustrated that I have to take over the lesson, and I have to bite my tongue to not. And it's just want to bang your head. Mental health will drive you mad. And so, yeah, the church then, I filed a lawsuit against the church because I'm under attack. People are trying to murder me. And in order to defend myself, I needed to protect myself, and I had found it. The receipt that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the prophets, were paying and ordering for my assassination, for my incarceration. I found it. And so, yay, I'm the most wanted of the church prophets. Of their troublemaker pictures on their wall, I'm the number one. And so John Deline thinks he's on there? He's nothing. Nope. There's a 70 came to the church apostles to present the threats to the church, and he did it in the form of a liberal and conservative threats in bubble things. They got leaked on Mormon leaks, and John Deline's on there. I'm not on there. and Denver Snuffer's on there, but no, I am their greatest threat because I know Joseph Smith is a translator. This is not his church. They're a fraud. They're a criminal fraud. They're seeking to overthrow this government. And so I went to the federal courts this time. But they're all compromised as members. They're supposed to all recuse themselves. Waddups didn't, so I lost. I was denied. So I did it again to include Waddups. And again, and with Waddups, you remember the magistrate justice of the federal court here in Utah that got fired? Remember her? Yeah, she was in charge of Gaddy versus COP and then had to recuse because she got fired. Well, that's strange. Why would she get fired? Who did she get put with until she had to leave in April of that year?
Clinic area, please.
Nope. She was assigned to my case with a specific order to dismiss it. And that's when I dropped the bombshell in the hearing that she had just with me, where I said, I have the receipt of the church paying for my incarceration and attempted murder. The little girls that joined in the back foyer all gasped. And the judge was writing and says, okay, you can refile. But she remained silent the rest of the way. She didn't do anything. And they then put in a new magistrate judge who did exactly what they wanted her to do. And Waddups approved. And so, yeah, the second one, 3 Mormon federal judges recused themselves this time. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, the funniest one was Kimball. When he was assigned, I submitted a filing. Hey, how's it going? Remember me? Recused. I had gone to him in the federal courts originally before the state court. He didn't even. But that's where Shurtleff came in and did his little attempt to force me to pay when I don't have a job with the state, with Commissioner Michelle Bloomquist, who was in the older singles ward and knew me. And then at the end, she's saying, next time, get yourself a lawyer, Travis. I wanted to say things and held back. And, And so, because of the lawsuits, I was able to sneak stuff in to the public record. I gave Holland a heart attack, for which he had to go to the hospital. Church refused to report it until 2 weeks later after he'd come home and he's all better. Infuriated Nelson, having to complain about complaints about his new temple changes to the text in the endowment ceremony. Yeah, he's pushing for polygamy. I caught him. He didn't like that. He's still pushing for it. He hasn't let up. He's going forward because nobody's holding him accountable. There's an unequal balance of justice in America, and especially in the state of Utah when it involves the church. And so I had to include the landlord and the property management as they were being ordered by the church. I had found the connection. And they were being ordered to assassinate me so that the case could not go forward. And so, after I lost the second one, they then laid in wait plotting and planning the next one. With the main source of income that I had and going to the bus stop, they were stalking me. using Metro security that was the same security that the church was using for the temple. And they all knew everything about me now, because I had sued them in the federal courts, and they wanted revenge. And so, yeah, when I crossed that line on YouTube, I got the little card at the bus stop, and people didn't believe me. No, that's not, the church isn't enough. They would never do that. Yeah. This is what they were planning. They were still planning to assassinate me, but through eviction. As they had failed for 6 months, even after that. And so they had to find Patsy to lie about me. Somebody who would be compromised. And same woman who warned me the day before my birthday that that's what they were going to do to me. They were going to do to me. And then it ended up being her that did it to me through them. Because, anyway. And so, yeah, by being evicted, they've attempted to murder me. I've gotten tested positive for COVID twice, been to the emergency room 3 times, had the EMTs come over multiple times. Beyond that, I've lost 3 belts. I can't say 3 belt sizes because you'd think of notches. It's not notches. 3 belts I've gone down in mass. And I've got the dry skin because of the weakened immune system from COVID. And yet YouTube banned my channel for what again? What was it? That I'm a denier of COVID? That I'm treating COVID less than how serious it is? YouTube was the ones doing that. I mean, this is beyond a beam and a mote. They knew they had nothing on me to justify shutting down my channel. They purposely lied to shut down my channel. And the Mormon who shut me down made sure to be the one to field the appeal and deny it 3 minutes before the end of his shift that day. And yes, I found out yesterday he's the one who's putting the token thumbs down on every single video of mine. He will not leave me alone. He thinks it's his duty and responsibility to protect the church. From what? Aren't they the true church? Why does the true church need protecting from you? You know, that's what they're taking advantage of me for. I've done nothing wrong. Why would I need to protect myself? Oh, right, the church. They're the bad guys. I need to protect myself from them. But that's why I tried to use the authorities, the justice system. I did it the proper way as the law required. Church doesn't. Church commits crimes against me. You know, it's against the law to try to murder someone, to try to cyber terrorize them, to try to... But apparently Mormons need to be told this. And so, yeah, this is where I'm at. 8 months coming up in November that this case, counterclaim, has been stayed. The judge has gone silent, just like Judge First did. I had warned her in the beginning that the church would attempt to compromise her, and she got compromised by evicting me. She signed my execution. As the federal government, I'm hoping, are the ones that are investigating, rather than just the judge saying, nope, not going to do anything. We'll just set it aside. Clerks, just every filing he sends, we'll just put it in his file. We'll just ignore him. Hope he goes away. How am I going to go away? Death. That's the only way I'm going away. And so, yeah, the crimes that I've been able to show with the evidence, the documents, and the receipts, it's enough to take down this church and everybody with it. But they're not going down, are they? As there's an unjust justice system. Because if the church was normal people, yeah, they'd be long since locked up. I would not be evicted. The landlord and the property management would be instantly in trouble if all things were equal. Things are not equal, so I have to suffer as the victim. And so, again, that Mormon who thought he did a little research on me and was extorting me to shut up and cancel my channels, what was it that you had on me again? Where did you think you were in the right to defend the church? Because the church needs defending against me, right? And they do, because I'm exposing the church as a fraud. So, yeah. This obviously is going to be my only video, unless there's breaking news later on tonight, but... I just want my life back. I just want a life. So I knew as a teen I would never be able to own my own home. What Reagan did to us just destroyed our economy. It trickled down economics. But it's been exploited and far worse than I imagined. Because I at least imagined that I could work at Blockbuster Video for the rest of my life. And I did for a brief period of time. But, and then just have a simple little apartment, living my life. And that dream didn't even happen. But, it is not a wonderful life. To have everybody hate me. Ex-Mormons hate me because they don't believe me. And so they're trying to bribe people to get vaccinated. Already been damaged. We're in a public environment. And if you didn't pay attention to the medical doctors, you'd understand why there's a problem here. But I'm sensing more anger coming also once he stops talking in Spanish. But, oh, he says Walmart. Okay. But, oh, nope, that one got shut down too. Okay. And so, yeah, I'm trying to warn you about what's about to happen. As you guys missed the Exodus in 2020, Section 103, verse 16. It's supposed to be an Exodus. You didn't hearken. You rebelled. He plagiarized it. How could he plagiarize it? Can't he do his own research? Dear God. Bednar. For shame. But, yeah, you Mormons and ex-Mormons are rebelling against me. Nobody wants to hearken. And the troubles are here. The troubles have happened. And then there's more to come. And we know what's coming. They've told us what's coming. They've told us what they're going to do to us. And it's in the process right now. It's happening already. We haven't even gotten to the election, and it's already happening. And I've warned, and nobody listens. And then next year is the bicentennial of the day that shall burn as an oven. Yay, we're all going to die. Nobody goes to Zion. And so Joseph Smith will finally be proven false by the Mormons themselves. So ex-Mormons, you wasted all this time for nothing. You didn't go after Brigham Young like you should have, but, you know, now Mormons destroyed the church for you. So, yeah, the prophets know all about this because they're in charge of everything that's going on. They're doing business deals with all our enemies, as I keep doing videos about it. They paid for all of this. They ordered and paid. You know, do you think billionaires are the ones running the nation and the world? The trillionaire, the church, they're in charge of everything. So, alrighty. I hope you survive. You know, I just wanted to save you guys. Protect you from the coming destruction, but you guys don't want to be saved. You're waiting for Jesus to save you. Yay. Where is he? He's supposed to be in Utah right now. Where is he?